I think we just wanted to. I think we reached a certain level with Necrosis, man. We like in professionalism, and it was a lot about the production. We wanted to have because in those days I think the production was kind of crude on death metal albums. And we were very meticulous about, and we really wanted, like, we worked with Colin Richardson. And
we were trying to get a King Diamond fucking production.
Yeah, we were into like Queensryche, and we'd hear something with Queensryche or a band like King Diamond, and we're like, oh, this little acoustic thing here, or this snare, this sound here. And we're just trying to push raise the bar, weren't we?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about Heartwork and where the inspiration came from for the album lyrically?
Lyrically?
Yeah. Did it differ from?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a case of that whole gore death metal thing was getting a bit tiresome. Because I was doing a guy write the lyrics, he was getting, more and more of a watered down version of what we've done in the past, and there's only so many times you can churn out the same crap with what you're saying. So I wanted to make something a bit more mature. And going back to what I said before about John Hartfeld and G. Voucher's artwork, all those lyrics are very kind of punk rock in as much as, these songs aren't protest songs, but they're songs using the same kind of Carcass language, trying to be a clever clog using, more than 2 syllables and that kind of thing. It's, I was trying to make this kind of really powerful, semi-quasi-fascistic, brutal lyrical content about, and the subject matter is all about, religion, warfare. Again, they're not protest songs, they're just actually statements of fact, I think if we're talking about influences on artwork, it's going to be your typical shit that we're into. And that period would be like, if you're going to rip the riffs apart, Thin Lizzy, there's Iron Maiden riff on the Trouble riff, probably Pantera riff, Slayer, definitely. Go on.
Malice.
Steady. The first track on the album's called Buried Dreams. The title's from a book about John Wayne Gacy, and the song's a play on the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. And it's not, it's flip the coin, it's saying all you need is AIDS. Because I think most people are driven by bitterness than they are by love, so.
Musically, did it differ musically from your previous stuff? How had you moved on?
It didn't. Basically, Carcass, to a certain extent, I would say was self-perpetuating by this point. It's still Carcass. Again, you'd have to ask Bill and Mike, because by this point they were writing the riffs.
Well, we're trying to push ourselves in terms of intensity and aggression, but with including as much melody as we could as well. So that's one thing that Carcass has always been about, is aggression with melody.
Yeah. But it's still definitely Carcass. The songs are more kind of, down before it was more progressive, long-winded 6, 7, 8 minute songs. These are a bit more concise. First chorus. I'm starting to realise that I should write a chorus and not just keep churning out bullshit words all the time. And around that period, this is just after Nirvana and Metallica broke those albums, so I think we realised that, I think the album's got more pop sensibilities than the other ones.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
But having said that, a lot of people seem to think, because it came out in Colombia, that they somehow watered down or had some impact on what we were doing. Or some people would say we sold out by that record. And it's absolutely fucking absurd, because, the album's still got blast beats. It's probably got one of the heaviest guitar tones that's ever been used in modern rock. It's totally technical as God knows what. It's really the antithesis of being commercial, to be honest.
Yeah, certainly.
For me personally,
it's still really brutal, and it's got the same sensibilities as Carcass always had.
For me, people bang on. I think you asked earlier, or that question insinuated about it being a classic record and all this kind of crap. For me personally, being objective, yeah, it is what it is, but it could have been better as well. There's certain things that never happened with that record that should have. Bill wouldn't do any vocals, for example. In my own head, I know if he'd have done his vocals, it would have been an even better album, And if the bass was louder in the mix, it would have been better as well. But
if you go deeper into that album, there's a lot of songs that are just really twisted.
Yeah.
A lot of cool riffs. Very technical stuff. So, that's cool.
Yeah, good days.
In Park Street, around the corner. It was done on Studio 48 track, which, you know, back in the days of analog, cost a small fortune for us anyway. It's not a lot of money by today's standards. Nothing really. Again, we had better equipment. Guitar sound seemed to take 3 days to get.
We had good studio engineers and good tape ops and everything. It's modern. It's got flying faders on the desk, which means that it's very controllable. The recording rooms are very dead, so you don't get too much spillage. Got a lot of equipment. They got SSL desks, which are top of the range. So it's top studio. Really enjoyed working here. Remember the stairway being very awkward to get equipment up, but I think there is a lift.
But there was a point where he was doing so much work with other bands that we thought were weak, because we were such snobs that we didn't want to work with them. Because in a way, it was like we were thinking, it's getting so trendy nowadays that we don't want to be lumped in with these bands. So me and Bill went down to meet him, and we were talking to him about it, and I could tell it, he was kind of upset about it, pissed off. And I can't remember how we somehow decided that we're still going to go with him, like, and it's a good job we did. Because if we were going to go our way, God knows what would have happened.
And were you doing anything different?
No, I mean, what's funny is we'd done a demo, and there's 3 studios back then. And there was a small demo studio, and we'd done a full version of the album as a demo. And it had a really good guitar sound. Again, this is like guitar crap, we should be talking to Bill about it, but...
Yeah, we're getting into technical shit here, but... obviously on Heartwork, because we are stacking guitars, there's like, in each channel there's 2 guitars, like, tracked as closely as they can be. So what we did, just to get as wide a range of frequencies as we could, was like, 5150 for 2 guitar tracks, and then a Marshall anniversary head for 2 guitar tracks. So
we'd done a demo, and the guitar sound was amazing. But when we went to do the album properly, we just couldn't get a guitar sound. For some bizarre reason, be it the desk, be it whatever, the sound was shit. And it must have took 2 or 3 days before we realised, well, let's go upstairs and just plug in and see what happens. Within 5 minutes, we had this great guitar sound again. So I don't think we did anything different. It was just we had more money to spend. We actually had some decent equipment, and there you go.
just to give you an idea, I mean, when we did the 3rd record, we actually had a big problem getting a satisfactory guitar tone. We were using a Marshall amp, it was fine, but the thing is, we needed more bass end, and there was just not enough bottom in this amp. And then subsequently, whatever, the 5150 came out, and we loved that amp just because it had so much bass end. And at the time it was revolutionary. I'd never heard an amp with that much bottom end and that much drive to it. And obviously, like Jeff said now, there's loads of them.
Yeah, it never, crossed this band's mind that we could just turn the bass up in the mix,
about the album cover, the H.I. Geiger thing? Was that your idea?
I mean, don't get me wrong, the artwork already existed. It was something he did in the late 60s, but what happened is we approached him by a series of coincidences. I mean, for example, I'd known some woman who was the best friend of his girlfriend, who's now his manager, and he'd actually recast the artwork. So when we approached him, it was just really good timing. So, and it was pretty cool about it because we didn't have a large amount of money, you know. I think he was prepared to cut us some slack just because his girlfriend was a friend of a friend. So sometimes, you know, the stars align and all that shit, and things work out, you know.
Did you meet him?
We toured later. We played Switzerland, and he invited us to his house, so we went over.
What was that like?
His house. It's quite funny. It's quite small. It's like basically it's two houses knocked into one, like a cottage. And it's just full of his artwork. I mean, a lot of his famous pieces are actually things that he's just painted on wardrobes, and you know what I mean.
Was he a pretty crazy guy?
I would say he's eccentric.
Yeah, eccentric. Well, crazy.
I wouldn't say he's crazy. He might sue us. But he seems like a really sweet, nice guy, and I'd say he's eccentric. Definitely. But you gotta be. I mean, you know? Again, it's like being a musician. You're driven by these dark forces we can't discuss on camera. I mean, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing if he wasn't a visionary, or whatever you want to call it, you know.
Was being in the band still enjoyable, or had it become more business?
I mean, there were elements that got tiresome, but overall it was really good. Really enjoyed it still.
No, I think it was good. It was fun. But around this time, this is when Mike was losing interest. I mean, we were recording Heartwork, and you know, I seem to recall he was stuck in Israel at a point, wasn't he? Did he get his passport locked into a flat? No, we've been to Israel, and he'd gone back. So basically, you know, the cracks were starting to show because Mike kind of started another band back in Sweden, Spiritual Beggars. So I remember after coming back after doing a tour in '92, that I can remember where his head was at, and he was kind of losing interest to a certain extent. He wanted to go off and do something, and I hate to use this word, but you know, commercial maybe. He could see the possibilities with a band like Spiritual Beggars going further than what you could see with a band like Carcass. And we used to always joke amongst ourselves that we were stuck in a death metal ghetto, that we weren't gonna, you know, we were never gonna be mainstream. So, you know, Mike was kind of starting to lose interest, I think, and doing Heartwork, he basically, you know, came in just to play his leads.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's pissed off at a couple of things that had happened with some of his riffs on one of the songs like Death Certificate, but, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't want to talk shit, but I'd rather just, you know, it's a shame he's not here to counteract this, but this is, you know, how it seemed at the time. So...
That's fair enough, Jim.
What was it like touring around that time?
Well, in a way, I don't know, what would you say about that? Because
well, it's when we started playing for the crowds that actually wanted to come and see us because of their albums and stuff, and we actually started drawing more people, didn't we?
yeah, this is interesting because yeah, I mean, my memory of those tours is very different actually. I think for Heartwork we did 2 American tours, is that right? Yep.
Yeah.
And the way I remember it is, obviously it was strange because Michael was officially in the band when we did the album, but when we came to tour it, he wasn't. So we had 2 different players. We had Mike Hickey on one tour, and then later we had Carlo. The other thing I really remember is actually the album got quite a frosty reception, especially in the States.
Yeah.
I remember meeting kids and they'd be saying,
Sold out.
yeah, it is sold out. Yeah, I mean, I remember.
Fast beat was grind.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that really clearly. People sort of more or less saying, yeah, you know, it's good to see you lot playing, etc., etc. And then as they're drifting away, they'd say, actually, I think the record sucks. Which, yeah, because the thing is, I thought it was a good record at the time. I really, you know, I still think it's the best Carcass record, but that's just my taste, you know. But I remember clearly at the time I didn't meet anybody who liked it, so it almost felt like we'd messed up. Not for us, but we just messed up in terms of delivering what our audience wanted to hear or whatever.
By then we'd got a crew with us that worked really well and gelled with us really brilliantly. Sound engineers and techs and everything. So they made our lives a lot easier. We'd also got a catering by that time on tour. We took our own catering crew out with us, and we had like decent tour buses and vans and everything to take all the equipment around with us. So it's quite a well-oiled machine by that point.
It must have been quite difficult in the earlier days with the catering thing, because most of you guys are either vegan or vegetarian.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. We struggled, especially going to places like Germany, where we didn't really understand the concept of vegetarianism.
And yeah, it must have been great going on tour with your own catering.
That was fabulous, yeah.
Could you order, spinach and cucumber sandwiches at 3 o'clock in the morning if they'd just run them?
No, nothing like that. But what they would do is they'd create a menu day by day, and we'd have like an input into what we wanted and what times it would be served. Because that's another problem with being on tour, is eating before you play with enough time to actually start digesting the food before you almost puke it up with the effort of and struggle playing. Very true, actually.
Did you have food on stage?
Occasionally, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Because of the food, or because you were wildly pissed?
No, because if you stuff yourself full of food and then you play with the intensity that we played, especially me, having to exert so much energy playing drums, and then it's bound to upset your stomach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Again, I can only speak for myself, but in those days I was really hardcore about the whole thing, and I really believed in the ideology behind it. And I mean, now, obviously, I'm not a vegan; I'm just a vegetarian or whatever. But obviously, yeah, Jeff and I were vegans. Ken was vegetarian. I mean, it was how it is in those days. We were really serious about it. But we like the fact that we're doing this thing with our music and having these lyrics, which just sent it off in another direction.
Are you saying by the same kind of analogy that Hitler was trying to confuse people by invading Poland?
Yeah. Very similar, yeah. Yeah. That's the problem there. Obviously, the most famous vegetarian of all time is Hitler, so... Yeah.
The band didn't remain vegetarian throughout, did you?
I didn't.
No, I mean, one of the guys, who was it that came in?
Oh yeah, Hickey.
Hickey.
Yeah, he did steak for breakfast.
Colin had me, didn't he?
Yeah.
So how did that...
Well, at that point we didn't give a shit. Yeah. Earlier on, when we were teenagers, we would have, we were totally extreme about it. It was like moralistic kind of crusaders.
Let's put this in context though. We didn't hate anyone because they ate meat.
No, but I mean, we'd be pretty judgmental about it.
Yeah.
Why did you stop being vegan?
I did it for about 7 years. I just got just really tired of it. Reading the ingredients on everything.
It's hard being on tour as well, wasn't it? Like going around and trying to get food every night.
Yeah, and I think also, probably a big factor is, getting together with a girl who wasn't like that. So you've got somebody who eats meat and whatever, and you're a vegan, so you have to have some kind of middle ground, and that's why I became vegetarian.
Funnily enough, that's why I stopped being a vegan, because a girl made me lasagna. I just didn't have the heart to say no cheese, so I had to do anything to get into a girl's pants. It just shows you how shallow vegans are. They're only after one thing, you see. Yeah. Look, watch out, girls. Any vegans out there?
No, I really think it's a great thing to do, but you need to know a lot about nutrition, and you probably need money. So I mean, yeah, I applaud anybody who does it, but for me, I just was like, it's enough for me not to eat flesh, and I just, everything else I'm going to eat from now on. So.
the album would you give to Mike Amott?
Well, he played very similarly to Bill in terms of like his riffing. He's very tight and specific, and his style matched Bill's very closely. So it made really thickened the guitar sound up, because when you got two people playing very closely together in terms of like the riffing, it just makes a more thicker, faster sound, which works really well for Carcass.
At the end of the day, you have to analyse who wrote what and who played what. So, well, if I told you what his cut is, then I would tell you what, you know. The album would not have been the same without him,
No.
but it wouldn't be the same without Ken, me, or Bill. So we're all as important as each other. So.
You know, a lot of people say, that guy ruined Carcass, and some people give, yeah, I mean,
It's only partially been true, isn't it?
I've heard that, and I've also heard that which I don't think is totally true. And then also I've heard a lot that people say, give me more credit than I deserve. That when you joined Carcass and they made Necroticism, the band went to that next level. There's more classic metal influences, and that most of the material was already written when I joined. That was already happening, right? The shift that you were talking about there in the writing, that was already happening.
No, I mean, but credit dues was credit due. You do deserve credit.
I think I get too much credit though, because I'm out there, with my new band, and people talk to me about Carcass all the time, and I feel like, Carcass is not my band. Carcass was
is
there.
this in North America? Those people are fucking cranks, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're gonna tell you what you want to fucking hear.
Yeah.
You can overtly go overboard and exaggerate about his importance or downplay it. I mean, he's part of that record. It's undeniable,
Yeah.
His lead really made that record along with Bill's. So, but if you're going to be totally brutal about it, we recorded the album when he wasn't there for a large part because he was stuck in Israel because his passport was there. So, I mean, these are the actual brutal realities of recording. I mean, if you go to a band like Metallica, I mean, all the rhythm guitars are done by one guy, and that's the way we work. Bill did all the rhythm tracks. Now, Mike wrote maybe a third of the album, riff-wise. So, of course, you can't undermine his credit for that. And you can't undermine, his lead playing.
Do you feel that his band now, their sound was perfected during the making of Heartwork? Yeah.
I mean, there is an irony there that because people think that Heartwork's a classic album, blah blah blah, and that guy must get asked about it all the time. Some journalists seem to think he's made a career based on that style, and I think whoever wrote that question is trying to imply that. But as Bill pointed out, when Heartwork came out, no one really liked it. Really, it sold okay. It went #1 indie in the UK, but it didn't really mean much in reality. 5,000-6,000 copies. If he's gone off to make a career, and that question is insinuating that he's somehow, it's based on that, then it doesn't matter what our fucking opinion is.
All musicians, no matter what they do, if they're going on to perform some other kind of music with another band, they're going to borrow or take ideas from the previous band, but it doesn't mean that you've ripped it off.
I mean, the brutal reality is, Mike was not that. If I'm totally honest, back then when we did the album and it was finished in the can, because he had other interests in his life, his other band, to him he was like he could take it or leave it. I'm sure he was happy with his playing.
Plus we'd already done a demo, hadn't we? So,
but he was, he wasn't. For him, it wasn't the most important thing in his life.
So why
after the fourth album.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, I get asked that a lot, and it's kind of,
What do you say? What's your?
I
what's
don't know.
like
I've got a standard. Let me look it
like
up.
a stamp.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't musical differences. I think it was more because I was really proud of the record that we'd made, Heartwork. And I remember I think we recorded it, and that was, and then we went to South Africa, right? That was the last thing I ever did with the band, was 2 shows in South Africa.
Wasn't that before that then?
I think
Can't
we,
remember.
no, I think that was after. That was definitely after that.
Was it?
Yeah. And I think leaving the band was difficult. I don't know what it was.
I mean, at the end of the day, Mike's half Swedish. He was living in Sweden, so I guess it was hard for him to keep travelling over here, and his heart was, going elsewhere. It's a bit like being in a marriage and you have a mistress, The mistress is going to be more fun.
I really can't. Now I thought it was completely stupid, of course. But
I'll tell you what it was basically, you confided in Martin, our manager, that you wanted to leave, and he told me and Bill.
and then I
And
was
you had no
out.
fucking choice. Yeah.
I was out.
Because the way he put it to me and Bill was like, yeah, Mike wants to leave. He wants to do one last tour, make some money and then leave. And me and Bill got pissed off.
Well,
so
the thing
it's
was,
like impossible,
yeah, it was impossible. And I think maybe we would have needed maybe Dr. Phil or whatever. No, what's his name? The guy on the Metallica DVD.
No, Dr. Phil, I like Dr. Phil.
Yeah, Dr. Phil's good. We could have had him in the metal, sort of getting us back together. But for me, I think what it was, without sounding too cliched, I think it was a case of because we toured in very simple conditions, very closely in a van and stuff, week after week, month after month, in like America and Europe. I don't know. We just did a lot of stuff, and I think we needed a break. I don't know.
You missed out on the best bit, Spiritual Beggars. You had that going. That's a better band. So.
No. Well,
Come on.
highly doubtful.
That was like your mistress. So that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I'd become interested in other kinds of music, and I formed another band back home.
Encouraged again by our manager.
Yeah, probably. It's still mismanaged, wasn't it? No, shouldn't blame. We're going to be on this DVD.
It's like fucking throwing Monster Magnet on the left, right, and centre and all this.
Yeah.
You stay with him for a week, and next thing you know, you're fucking.
Yeah, I think I was very easily influenced back then as well. I mean,
Back then,
only now I'm solid as a rock.
Because we are our own weird, eccentric little selves, And the big mouth little cunt, those the intelligent, quiet one with an angry streak who will not smash in the face even though he wants to. And Ken's just, Ken, cloud cuckoo land half the time, getting stoned, crazy, his lordship, very fussy, towels on the radiator, smelling the room out. And then, Mike fitted in as well. Mike's a very funny guy, but, could take himself too seriously sometimes, but not enough some other times. I mean, that's all we all got along. I mean, if everyone was the same, what would be interesting?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't get that sort of chemistry with every group you play in. I mean, I haven't had it since. It's really nice when you've got a band where everyone has their little role and it all works as a cohesive unit. Even if it's dysfunctional or whatever, if it still works enough to get the job done.
There's definitely a void in the band, and it stopped being fun touring to a certain extent. We were good on stage with Mike and Carlo, but it was never the same. And it's sort of years to come around to be able to admit that. Yeah, it was really shitty when we wanted out. It wasn't as much fun anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that was in a way it was the beginning of the end, because you can't just put any guitar player in a band. They might be able to play the notes, but is the personal chemistry there? All that stuff. And we were lucky. We drafted in a couple of strong guitar players, but there was obviously something missing. And like Jeff said, part of it was just the fun aspect, because the four of us used to have a really good laugh. And then by the time Mike and Carlo had got Mike Hickey and Carlo had got involved, it wasn't really fun. It was just like we were on the treadmill or something. So it's not really their fault, but just the fun was already going anyway.
Yeah, I saw them yesterday. We were playing the same venues again. It's just kind of, we never got, not so much the breaks, but we never got to this next level that we that Columbia kept saying, you know, we'll stick you on this tour, on that tour. I mean, personally, my attitude wasn't like, okay, we get this tour, we're going to get bigger, famous. It was just, this is interesting. We've not played a theatre in North America or a stadium, you know? That's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we just ended up playing the same shitholes we did it anyway, so it's got a bit boring, you know? There are people who love the first album, there are people who love the second album, there are people that think the third album is a complete sellout, there's people who think the fourth album is pop music. These people like what they like, you know, in these albums, and they do all sound different.
If you're writing music for people, then you're missing the point of the band anyway, because we were writing music for ourselves, not for anybody else. And if people liked it, that's fine, but we didn't actually necessarily tailor our music towards a particular audience. I think that's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, and you see these records in themselves are all kind of spawn different genres, if you like. So there are people who are really defensive about that sound, that style, that will hate the next record. So somebody who likes the first album is going to hate the fourth album. So, and everyone hates the fifth album. We haven't got there yet. So, time's been kind to the album and Carcass in general.
Yeah, you know, just you're lucky when things fall into place. I mean, with us, loads of stuff fell into place with that. Like, our chemistry between the four of us was at a good point, so we came up with really good material for that one. Colin was just, you know, at the peak of his game. I mean, what he did on that record is fantastic. That's why it stands up, because obviously sound is a big factor, and if the production dates, it's hard to go back to an album, but people still remember that record because he just made such a great job of the production that it's still listenable now. So it's all those things, really. Yeah, I mean, I always think of it as the best one, just because it was the first time I came out of a studio happy with what we'd done, 100%.
It could have been better. If Bill had done some vocals on it, it would have been a lot better. Not as monotonous sounding. Prognathous gears grind, so diligent and so rated they mesh. Tooth cogs churn, so tread chance against soft flesh. Work to the bone, up to the hilt, depredated, raw materialism to stoke the furnaces. Toiling, rotting, life slowly slips away, consumed, inhumed, in this mechanised corruption line, by mincing machinery industrialised, pulped and pulverised, enslaved to the grind. Blood, sweat, toil, tears, our bite McFry, a grave to the grind. Inimitable gears twist to churn a living grave, stainless cogs shredding, scathing pistons bludgeon and flail, stripping to the bone, Riton mandrels levigate, just raw material, your pound of flesh for the suzerain. Toiling, rotting, life slowly dissipates, consumed, inhumed, in a corruption line mechanised, by mincing machinery industrialised, crunched and brutalised, a grave to the blind.